In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to become a bookkeeper with no experience. I had the pleasure to interview two moms on my website, and I interviewed them to see how they became a bookkeeper with no experience. And what they did was they took this course, and that was all they needed to do to build a thriving business. And one of those moms has 9 kids. 9 kids, guys, and she has a successful business. The reason she can have a successful business is because the hours that it takes for a bookkeeper are so minimum. Like it takes 1 to 4 hours to work on your client's work per month, okay? And the minimum that you should be charging your clients is $500. So you can do the math on that, on why this is such a lucrative opportunity where you are working on your own schedule as long as you can meet your clients' deadlines. Now, in today's video, I had the pleasure to interview the man behind the course that the moms took, and he's gonna be able to give us a deep dive in what it takes to become a bookkeeper. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's go. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Whitney. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Before we get into the list of questions that I have on how to become a bookkeeper, can you first just give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. I love poetry, long walks on the beach, and that's not for this profile. Uh, so, I am a certified public accountant, CPA by trade. I have been in this industry since 1999. Before that, I was in the Air Force and a couple of other things, but I had my own CPA firms for a number of years, and bookkeeping was the backbone of what we did and how we brought people in. And when I sold my firm back in 2014, I really didn't know what I was going to do because really that's all I had done up to this point. And through some circumstances of a friend of mine, she lost her job and was looking for a way to stay at home with her 3 boys and not have to go and commute to a job. And I said, hey, why don't we help you to start a bookkeeping business? And that was in March of 2015. And then that evolved into going, if this works for Kelly, I wonder if this could work for other people. So just by a sheer set of happenstance did bookkeepers evolve. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I have 3 kids. They're grown. I'll use air quotes around that. So in case they're listening, they know that dad still helps them out a little bit when he can. I have 3 kids. I'm married. My wife has 3 kids. So we live in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
All right, that's awesome. I had no idea of that, the story of how bookkeepers.com came about. That's awesome. And I think those are kind of the best success stories when it's just you're trying to solve a problem. I mean, that's how any business can be successful. You're solving a problem. You have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So, okay, well, let's get into it. So what does a bookkeeper do?
Wow. There's several ways I wish I could answer that. I'll give you the boring one here in just a second, but the first thing I'll tell you to do is that they create an order out of financial chaos. They're really the frontline person for taking all the financial and accounting and all that sort of data and putting it into a format that a business owner can understand. Because here's the deal. Business owners were never trained in accounting or bookkeeping or finances, and they don't enjoy that, most of them, right? They're really good at being an electrician, at being a veterinarian, at having an e-commerce store, and that's what they want to do. They're passionate about that. They're not passionate about doing the bookkeeping. And so a bookkeeper is the one that really comes in there and takes all this data that's in an unorganized format and puts it into an organized format, and then gives that information to the business owner. And then, as we teach people to do, interprets that data in a way that the business owner can say, now I get what's going on, so that he or she as the business owner can focus on the core work that they need to be doing, growing their business, but also making informed decisions on the information that the bookkeeper is putting together. And so, again, it's kind of herding cats is another way in which I would describe that. But there's a more functional things of how you do that. But at a very high level, that's what you're doing. You're providing a much needed service to a business owner that doesn't know how to do that, nor do they want to know how to do that, but it's so critical to their business and their success.
No, that's awesome. So I have my own business and I don't have a bookkeeper, but this is showing why I need one, because I don't have time to try to interpret the numbers and honestly understand what they need, what they mean, and what I should do about that. I do my own right now, and I'm just do all the stuff in QuickBooks. but
Mhm.
I'm not actually like looking at the numbers, seeing what it means. So that's what you guys do. And if you guys, I mean, so if since that's what you guys do, I see the value in that. You're not just doing my bookkeeping, doing my transactions, accepting them, and that's just so it's much more to that. I didn't know that.
Well, and it used to be that it wasn't. I mean, up until about for 8, 10 years ago, a bookkeeper was just doing most of that because all their required time was spent data entry. And now that we have tools and technology that enables us not to have to do a ton more of that, like 90% of that has been eliminated, that frees up our time to do higher level work, which is what clients pay us for, right? Reconciling a bank statement, while very important, does not add a lot of value to a business owner. However, building upon that, which is like, if I were to say, I want to buy a house and it's just the foundation, well, that's not very pretty, right? I want the nice house with everything fixed up. But if that foundation weren't put there right, then everything that was built on top of it would fail. Same thing with bookkeeping. While the reconciliation, like a foundation, is important, we need to do things on top of that. So the bookkeeper has evolved over the course of the last 8 to 10 years in a tremendous fashion for the better for them, because they can make more money because they can provide more value.
Exactly. That's the key out of all of this too.
Mhm.
And so are there any requirements to getting started as a bookkeeper? Like, do you have to have a bachelor's degree, or what are the requirements for someone who wants to get started?
So I'll speak to the United States and Canada. There is no requirement for you to have a bachelor's degree, for you to have experience, for you to have a license, which is good and bad. We, as bookkeepers.com, we want to make it such that it is licensed at some point. And that's a good thing, because if I go and get my hair cut, that person who's cutting my hair today has to have a license from the state. However, if somebody's doing the books for a business owner, they don't have to have one. And we're out to right that wrong. We see that as a wrong. However, from a requirement standpoint, it's not required. So low barrier to entry. Now, that being said, there are other qualities, requirements, traits, characteristics, and all those sorts of things that you need to have. But in terms of like, hey, do I have to have a bachelor's degree? No. Do I have to have experience? No. So yeah, it's
Okay. Well, upon that question, then what are the characteristics or traits that someone should possess if they want to become a bookkeeper?
That's a great question. And in our free classes, we cover that, but I'll tell you just a couple of them. Number one is that they have an eagle eye. They pay attention to detail. So it's very granular. Obviously, you're dealing with a lot of numbers. If you're the type of person that likes to know all the numbers, you go into your bank account and you like to use Quicken, or you like to use, it's dating myself right there, you like to use Mint or something like that, and that really kind of gets you going and energized, that this might be for you. If you like math, or at least are not math phobic, that's a good characteristic right there. But I'll say that's the more technical side of things. But as a business owner, because that's what we do, is help people become not a bookkeeper working for someone, but working for themselves, is that you have to be empathetic. You have to really want to help somebody and help them to understand what's going on in their business. Because as I mentioned before, they don't understand bookkeeping. They don't understand finances. They understand cash balance, and they understand if they have it or they don't, but everything else, it's very important to be empathetic and helping that business owner to become better, helping them to understand, as it relates to finances, how can they improve their business. So those are just a few of the qualities that are needed for someone to even consider getting into this.
Yeah, no, and I love this job because I feel like it's so purposeful. Like, you're literally just helping someone become a better business owner. And I mean, you can sleep good at night with that,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, one of the most important questions is, how much can you earn per client?
Huh.
Or what are averages? Because I don't want to just say like, oh, you can make $1,000, which by the way, my accountant, they charge $1,000 just for bookkeeping services for me for once a month. And I thought that was crazy. That's why I was like, well, I'm just doing it myself.
Right.
But I will say for the way my business works, I have very few transactions going back and forth. That's why I really don't have a bookkeeper. But just to think that they would charge $1,000 means that this is a lucrative field if you can provide the value.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, standard disclosure, we can never guarantee what somebody makes. However, a couple of studies, and obviously my own knowledge of this. QuickBooks does a study every year of the average rates. They go out to QuickBooks Pro advisors and say, hey, what are you earning? And the one that I last saw and come sticks to head was $71 an hour, right? We teach our people not to bill by the hour, but that just goes to show you the value that's in there. Now, people say, well, I went to a job site. I went to Indeed, and these people are hiring bookkeepers for $20, $25 an hour. Right, they are, but that's not a business owner, and that's you being an employee for somebody. And so we're talking about you being either a freelancer, an independent contractor, or most important, owning that bookkeeping business. So when we look at things, we say, hey, the minimum that you should ever charge for a client is $500. So most people, like you said, $1,000 was too much, $500 may be too much. So it's all about selecting the right type of people to target, which is probably the number one thing that you can do to set yourself up for success in bookkeeping, is working with the right people.
Yeah.
If you look at a great football coach, and since I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan, I'll use Kirby Smart. He's a good coach, but what does he do? He selects the best players. And same thing with our business. If we're working with people that buy into what we believe, see the value in what we deliver, that exponentially raises what we can earn. So, I mean, we have students that are making $5,000 a month per client. We have some students that said, hey, I want to work with micro clients and make $200 a month per client, but it takes me an hour, right? And everything in between. When you first start off in this business, you may be making $8 an hour because you're inefficient, but over time you become more efficient, and that 8 turns into 80 maybe. And so, there's just a whole different set of variables in there. But I will tell you this, Entrepreneur Magazine and Inc. Magazine rank bookkeeping as the number one most profitable business. They're in the category that's number one most profitable. So that tells me that means I have to have high income and low expenses. And that's a perfect type of business, and especially when you can run it from anywhere. So while no guarantees can be given, it's a very lucrative business to get into.
Right now, so what kind of things would you recommend someone who wants to become a bookkeeper? Do they have to purchase anything to become a bookkeeper outside of, any training or anything like that?
Yeah, so I know that you're going to talk about the course that we put together, our free course that gives you some insights into that, and we'll kind of walk you through everything that you need. But fortunately, it's a very short list. Most times you need a computer, you need a reliable internet connection, you need something like meeting, Zoom, something like that. Obviously, there's some software and things, the big one being the bookkeeping application, and most people use QuickBooks Online. Some people use Xero. There are other things that you need, but this is a very simple business. That doesn't mean it's easy, but it's a very simple business in that you don't need a lot of stuff, right? You could literally run this business from a backpack, because everything that you need is pretty much in the cloud, and you don't need big machines, and you don't even need a printer. I mean, I recommend you get one, but it's a very simple business model. So there's not a lot of stuff that you have to get. Most people, when they start, already have 90% of what they need. Now, the big thing though, having the head knowledge and having the practical skills to complete that, right? So that's a different animal right there.
Yeah. Now, how much time do you think would you say someone should spend? And I know every situation is different, so I don't know if I should even ask this question this way, but as far as time wise, how much time would you recommend people are putting into each client?
So that's a great question. So I would say that the hitting the bullseye type of client that is most 3 to 4 hours a month is what you should be targeting.
A month.
3 to 4 hours a month. Yeah. Now, as I mentioned before, we have people that are working with a client that's $5,000 a month. They're probably putting in 50 and 60 hours, right? So a smaller type of client, let's say it's $500 a month, that client, you should maybe be spending 4 to 5 hours. Now, again, I'll go back to at the very beginning, you may be spending 10 or 12 hours a month because you're inefficient, even if you have the skill set. So it just takes you time. Imagine the first time you rode a bike or the first time you drove a car. It was awkward. You weren't very efficient, but you did that repeatedly time and time again. And now it's automatic. You're a lot faster. You're a lot more efficient, and you're effective at what you're doing. So it's a wide range. Literally, I speak to some students that they spend 45 minutes a month on a client. And then some people, have 3 clients and they're working kind of 3 part-time jobs and everything in between. but the key is to figure out how to become effective. That's the most, doing the right things. And then when you do those right things, then how efficient can you be doing those? So yeah, it can vary, but the great thing is that, people can do this. They can choose, hey, I want to work with one client. I think of a student of mine, Justin Boynton, who said, I needed to earn an extra $500 a month because his wife was expecting, and it was unexpected expecting. And he wanted to get one client, $500 a month, and he got that. And quickly, fast forward 3 or 4 years later, and he was able to quit his job and is making a lot more money now than he was making in his previous job working as a banker. So it's a wide variety of different situations that you could take. But yeah, that's just some general numbers that I would have.
Yeah. No, yeah. I love that. And I'm a big proponent of, like, especially for those who have a 9-to-5 who are thinking about quitting their job. I'm all about, find the business that you want, but do it on the side first. And then as that grows and you can sustain, then that's when you can quit your job. So this is like a perfect opportunity that you can do with a 9-to-5 and still build your business and where you can quit your job. So this is such a nice
absolutely. Now, I will say this, and we've all done this, like when you're doing that, when you have a side hustle and you're working, you're grinding. I mean, it's like Damon John's book, Rise and Grind. I mean, you're working, but it's a short-term sacrifice for a lifetime of benefit. And I love that model where you're going in and not burning the boats and saying, oh, I'm just going to quit my job and all this is going to be fine. Some people can do that. Most people can't, and most people shouldn't. So I love that you can do this on the side and build it up to a point and then say, goodbye, job.
Right. No, I love that. So I just have one more question. Oh, no, I have 2 more. So with tax season coming up, I have this question written down. Do you think this is a good idea for bookkeepers to offer that service as well?
To offer tax services?
Yes.
Yeah. So great question. So there's not a right answer to it, right? So my business, when I had my CPA firm, we offered bookkeeping, we offered accounting, we offered tax, we pretty much, and then consulting services on top of that, CFO, whatever you want to call it. And that was a modality that I chose and I liked it. However, a lot of people choose to only do bookkeeping services, and there's pros and cons. I will say this, if you're just starting off and you've never done this before, or even if you've done bookkeeping before, I would not try to add tax services until I got really good at bookkeeping, until I established my systems, until I knew what in the heck I was doing, because otherwise it's like trying to become a dentist and a doctor at the same time. A lot of similarities, but you're going to be spreading yourself too thin, and you may be doing things to people's teeth that you should have done to their pancreas, right? So not recommended that you start off that way. Only after you got to a certain point would I say even consider doing that.
Yeah, I know that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then your top 3 tips for becoming a successful bookkeeper.
Number 1, make sure that it's right for you. Okay. Don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. So really taking the time to consider, is this right for me? Am I a good fit? Do I have the qualities? Can I see myself doing this? Would I be, at least you don't have to be like gung-ho, like, yay, bookkeeping, but at least it's like, yeah, I can see this and I can see the possibilities. So making sure that you're the right fit, number 1. Number 2, making sure that you have the correct skill set. It's so imperative that you understand not just the head knowledge, because when we go to college, like I got so much, my head was filled with so much stuff that I never used, right? That was just for extreme circumstances, and I never came across that. So it's not just about learning the knowledge side of things, but more important, how do you take that knowledge and make the practical side of things work? How do you really serve your client? That's the most important thing, and the soft skills that are in there. So developing all those, and we have a lot of people that come into us with prior accounting, bookkeeping, and finance experience, and when you're starting your own business and you're working for multiple clients, that's much different than you were working for one person. So even if you have that background, it's important that you have all these skill sets and you can bring it all together and put that into the context of running a business, right? So that would be number 2. And number 3, work with the right people.
Yeah.
Right. Picking kind of what I said earlier, the reason that Kirby's so successful is that he picks the right players, pick the right clients. Right. We talk about having a niche, serving one niche, right? And really being able to go deep in that. Like if you think about a doctor, does a doctor who is a general practitioner, or is a doctor who's a specialist more revered and make more money? Well, it's the specialist, because they know one they know one vertical, they know one specialty, and they can go really deep in it. And we recommend the same thing. So, like e-commerce, like getting really good at learning e-commerce, attorneys getting really good at that, nonprofit, veterinarians, but really going deep with those is an eventual place that you want to go. So those are 3 kind of tips that I would tell you right off the bat and say, this sets you up for success.
No, these are amazing tips. So if you guys think that becoming a bookkeeper is something that you're interested in, I want you to take his free video course that is going to really let you know if this is right for you. Now, what I'm going to do is going to put that in the description below so you guys can take that to decide if this is the right job for you. And it's not a job. You will become your own business owner, working on your own schedule, making however much you want, and it's all completely up to you. So I want you guys to take this opportunity to see another way of doing life. So I'm going to put that in the description below. And Ben, thank you so much for being with us today.
Whitney, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.